My name is Jade Wright. I am a student at Liberty University, and this is my interpersonal communications project. Next page, please. This In this project, I will be doing the introduction. I will identify my overarching goal. I will share some information about my background. I will define the potential barriers to my communication pattern. I will identify and provide solutions to noise pollution, both internal and external, and I will give you my action plan. Next page, please. The introduction is in defining what is interpersonal communication. According to author John Stewart, interpersonal communication is a type of communication that happens when people involved talk and listen in a way that maximizes the presence of the person. Next page, please. The basic elements of interpersonal communication consist of four things. One, a sender, a person who sends information. Two, receiver, the person who receives the information sent. Three, the message, which is the content of the information sent by the sender. And four, the feedback, the response from the receiver. To identify my overarching goal, master goal, my goal is to become an advocate and an effective counselor for marginalized Americans. My main focus is on the homeless population. In order to accomplish my goal, I have to become an effective communicator because the population I work with sometimes suffers from comorbidity, which is mental problems coupled with drug issues, with drug and substance abuse issues. I have to learn to become a very, very good listener using both the cues that they're sending and what they're actually saying and hearing what they're actually saying. My background, I'm a 48-year-old African American woman. Uh, I'm a 48-year-old African American woman. I grew up in a two parent home, the oldest of seven children. I was raised in a culture that was somewhat different from mainstream American culture. I grew up in a very interdependent family. There was a heavy emphasis on education, and saying that all seven of my brothers and sisters and I do go to college, go to school, or we have our degrees. I'm the mother of three children, and I have my own cultural help group. One factor that does play a part in how effectively I communicate is the fact that I got hit by a truck when I was 22 years old, which left me with a slight speech impediment. Please turn the page. When I began this course, we took two assessment tests, which helped us to determine how we could become better and more effective communicators. In the assessment test, has four. Carbonell has identifies four terms that he uses to describe his behavioral blends. I happen to be an ID of the behavioral blends. Next slide, please. There are also uh, there are the I part of the I, D, S, and C. They make up all four of the behavioral blends. Next slide, please. What I am is ID. That means I'm inspiring, influencing, directing, dominating, impressive, interactive, interested in people, demanding, determined, and decisive, and doing. What is expected of me, however, is IC, and that would add cautious, competent, calculating, compliant, careful, and contemplating. Those are the things that I have to work on. Next slide, please. Noise pollution. This is another factor that will determine how well I communicate. External noise control. External noise control can be anything from the climate, it can be from the nervous habit of chewing gum that I have, or it can be learning, or it could be speaking to a hearing impaired person. I grew up in a home that was where my maternal grand aunt lived, and she was hearing impaired. The internal noise pollution would consist of factors like being biased. They would consider being ethnocentric or egocentric. Um, Listening to only what I want to hear. Preconceptions, using my preconceptions of people. The solutions for both of these, and you might not be able to, or at least for the solutions for problems that you can deal with, because some of the solutions you might not be able to do. You for externally, the ones that you can control might be fidgeting, um, the limiting your noise in your environment, remaining unbiased, um, and trying to limit my preconceptions. I must avoid ethnocentric behavior and egocentric listening. I can also maintain eye contact. I can repeat and then paraphrase to ensure that I am listening. Next page, please. To enlarge my conversation. I can do some of these things to enlarge my conversation. I can utilize effective, empathetic listening. I can avoid listening to rebuke. I can avoid rescuing in a trauma triangle. I can limit myself. I can address my self-disclosure issues and perhaps limit how much I self-disclose. And I can deal with my own defensive behavior. Next slide, please. With empathetic listening, there are really three basic skill sets that we need to utilize. Encouraging, when you're going to encourage your listeners, focusing, giving them your total attention, and reflecting, thinking back on on what is to be said. Next slide, please. Listening to rebuke. This is something that I do all the time, and or that I did before I took this course. And whereas when the speaker was speaking, I was only thinking, I was already formulating my argument in my head to rebuke. Next slide, please. So the last factor I'd like to talk about, or another factor I'd like to talk about, is my self disclosure. I am the type of person that I do self disclose quite often, and I'm very free with with sharing of my experiences. However, there are times that sharing of your experience might limitate might limit the effective quality of the conversation. Next slide, please. Um, Rescuing others is a habit that I also have, and so I need to learn to instead of jumping to solve a problem, give my advice. It may be necessary sometimes. Instead of jumping to solve the problem and give my advice, it may be necessary sometimes to express my ideas in a non-judgmental, easy way instead of my habit of jumping in and fixing the problem, even when the people might just want somebody to listen to. Next slide, please. Defensive behavior is another tactic. Defensive behavior is another thing that I need, another factor that I need to address, because defensive behavior only leads to confusion. It does not lead to clear conversation that's transparent. Defensive behavior can include lying. It can include which, when dealing with the homeless population or the population of people I deal with, um, this might be something that I see often. It is easy to become defensive in a conversation, especially when you're being attacked. And sometimes in conversating with the homeless population or with marginalized individuals as a defense mechanism, they might reach out, they might verbally attack you. And it is good to learn to calm the situation down when you are being verbally attacked. And I will utilize the lessons that I study and learn in this course to reduce defensive behaviors. Next page, please. Now, this leads to my plan of action. My plan of action, number one, is to incorporate the instructions of my teacher, the instruction and the lessons of my teachers, and all of the videos that I've had, all of the books that we've had, all the authors have given such good, valuable, and clear instructions on how to become an effective listener. So if I really take in what I've learned in this course, I believe that I will achieve my goal. The second thing I need to do is remember the lessons of my deaf aunt. My deaf aunt always taught me to speak clearly, to enunciate my words, but also to be a good listener. Um, I'm still working on that one. The second thing I would like to try to incorporate, one of the authors or one of the lessons that I really enjoyed was Dr. Peterson's flat brain um, theory. And in this flat brain theory, we talked about how the emotions, if we become so emotional that it squeezes out the room for us to think clearly, and out of our mouth just emits noise filled with all the emotional baggage and junk we're carrying. So this says to me that in order to become an effective communicator or an effective counselor, healer, or listener, I have to work on my own issues and my own self. The last thing I would like to do is I need to become a good, and I need to remain and strengthen my connection with God, because I believe this is going to ensure my success. And if I keep God first in my life and put God first, I have nothing to do but to succeed. Um, Next page is my reference page, and I thank you very much for listening to me, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to take this wonderful class. Thank you.